एक मुझे वचन दे। मैंने बोला क्या? से तेरे देश में तेरे ही बच्चों को तेरी ही संस्कृति के प्रति एक तरह से आदर, इज्जत और प्रेम नहीं है, और एक मुझे वचन दे कि तू कभी ना कभी अपने इस विद्या विहार में ऐसी ऐसी चीज़ की शुरुआत करेगा कि पीपल विल अप्रिशिएट देयर ओन कल्चर एंड दे विल ब्रिंग अ प्राउड। एंड शी सेज you can do it 10 years later, but this gift is not a gift, it is a सौदा। कि मैं तुझे आज ये तोहफा देती हूँ, लेकिन इसका मैं जवाब, इसका मैं लेकर रहूँगी, इसका कीमत में लेकर रहूँगी। तो अपने ही देश में, अपने ही विश्वविद्यालय विहार में अपने बच्चों को सिखा कि ये क्या है, कि आपका देश क्या है। और मैं खुशी से कहूँगा कि पिछले साल मैंने हमारे स्कूल के बच्चों को, 7वीं और 8वीं कक्षा के बच्चों को, हमने इतिहास का एक प्रोग्राम किया। हमने उनको बीजापुर और आईहोले पदत्कल में ले गए। वहाँ पे हमारा ही लड़का जो एक भरतनाट्यम का जाना माना डांसर है, उसने उस मंदिरों में जाके नाच उनको दिखाया। उन्होंने कहा देखो ये जो स्कल्पचर है, इट इज़ अ फ्रोजन डांस इन टाइम, इट इज़ फ्रोजन, नाउ यू राइट अ स्टोरी, व्हाट वुड यू फ्रीज? And he taught them that. He took them to Bijapur. We took them to show them the Gol Gumbaz, showed them symmetry, showed them mathematics, showed them ki how to quarry which they removed and made the Gol Gumbaz stones was converted into a water tank. Showed them poetry which was the mixture of Hindi and Urdu of those dynasties. To try and understand that it is not, cultures are not only about separation, but cultures are also about coming together. And this is how, so I feel like that is a beginning of trying to create these kind of programs. But the idea in education should be, this is how we must teach. Now once again, but to do this, because this is only what we're doing is scratching on the surface, because it is only today we have 35,000 students and 1500 faculty, but today this is all scratching at the surface. To get into the surface, we have to be able to have the full freedom to do what we want. Mumbai University has given us autonomy since the last 1 or 2 years. We've created an honors program in which we've said sports is necessary. We've created coursework in some of our own cultural subjects, whether it be Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, or interfaith discussions. But those are options. We think that, as you said, in every program, in every degree, we should at least sprinkle it or populate it with some of the learnings that are existing in our knowledge. I was with an ortho in our medical college, sir. I was in an orthopedic department. There was a lady with osteoarthritis, and I asked her, we have an Ayurvedic department in the same college, do you take her for an Ayurvedic massage? Because I know my Bua used to appreciate. And he simply said, no, we don't do it. We don't talk. We need to bring that somehow into the system. Now, finally, I think in our education system, we do need to also teach skills of even keeping the mind under control. I think कृष्ण ने अर्जुन से कहा था कि असंशय ही महाबाहो मनो दुर्निग्रहम चलम अभ्यासेन तो कौन्तेय वैराग्येण तो गृह्यते। आई थिंक ये अभ्यास है, इसकी प्रैक्टिस की ज़रूरत है। ये खुद अपना मन कुछ चंचल है, नहीं तो दौड़ जाएगा। दिस ऑल्सो वी वॉन्ट टू टीच and we want to bring it into the curriculum. We are trying our very best and we will do it. It is a journey. It is not something that will happen overnight. We are institutions here, and institutions have their own time frame. We need our patience that we know it will come, but we also have to be impatient that we wanted it yesterday. Thank you for giving me this.
बहुत ही अच्छा रहा समीर साहब, बहुत अच्छा निवेदन। समय के अभाव के कारण हम प्रश्नोत्तर नहीं ले सकेंगे। संयोजकों की ओर से मैं क्षमा प्रार्थी हूँ। यह सत्र यहीं समाप्त होता है। अगली सूचना आपको मिलेगी। धन्यवाद।
It has been a very long day, so just bear with me and all of us with another 15-20 minutes. We will have the I think we'll invite the next gentleman. We will have our next talk, and the talk was scheduled for Shri Ram Shankar Katheria ji, who is Minister of State, Human Resources, but His mother is having some serious health issues. I just got a call today. But we have someone wonderful amongst us, and that is Professor K. Ramasubramanian. He's a professor in IIT Mumbai or IIT Bombay, because that is the actual name, legal name. That's what I'm saying, IIT Bombay. And he's a PhD in theoretical physics. And in addition to that, he is an excellent person who knows engineering, and he is a postgraduate in Sanskrit. He comes from a very traditional family, and where he had the opportunity and the fortune, which not a lot of us have had, to learn Ved and Vedant under the tutelage of none but his own father, who is a very great scholar of Sanskrit. And at IIT Bombay, of course, he knows theoretical physics, but he is trying to bring in synergy between traditional studies and modern science. And for that work, in 2008, the President of India, he conferred upon him Maharshi Badrayan Vyas Samman. So I will request Professor Subramaniam to give us some parting note, and he will talk, I think, about values and education. Thank you.
यहाँ समुपस्थित संस्कृत और संस्कृति के अभिमानी लोग, विद्वज्जन, आप सभी लोगों को मेरा प्रणाम निवेदन करके मैं आपसे क्षमा मांगता हूँ कि हिंदी में उतना अच्छी तरफ नहीं भाषण कर पाऊँगा, इसलिए मैं अंग्रेजी में भाषण करूँगा। नमस्कार। In fact, I was really thrilled to be here to listen to the various talks that were delivered today, and this is really a surprise that I am going to be on the dais. The topic which was supposed to be delivered by the other speaker is titled Values and Education. If at all the education has to serve a purpose, I feel that it should enable the person to value the values. If the person learns to value the values, then naturally there will be a tendency for the person to inculcate those values in him, which is what will make a nation. So we should try to expose people to that kind of literature which will make them have a feel for those values and what those values will contribute to the society. Once we do that, I think we have served our purpose, and this is what is sort of ingrained in the sutra form, Sa Vidya Ya Vimuktaye. This Vimukti is something which is sought after by every individual, starting from mosquito to Brahma. I want to have a certain degree of freedom enjoyed by me is something which is there in every creature, starting from plants to flies to businessmen, in fact even devatas. What is this freedom that we seek for? With reference to humans, I would say the freedom that we seek for is to be free from evil thoughts. Knowingly or unknowingly, the moment we commit a certain crime,
there is a sense which sort of pricks us from inside, we try to sideline it and then try to engage in something else in order to forget it. And the more the kind of sins that we commit, the more will be the tranquility that is lost. And in order to see to it that some kind of tranquility and inner freedom is enjoyed by us, people try to intoxicate themselves by some external agencies. Tranquility is something which we are endowed with, and that is what is being taught in all our scriptures. A sense of freedom, a sense of tranquility, a sense of shanti is something which is our own nature, and we have sort of forgotten it. And this is what is being time and again emphasized in all our scriptures in all forms, starting from Gita to Upanishads. So this vimukti we need at the individual level. Even a small boy who is going to school, the moment he completes the examination, he feels that he is somewhat free. The moment we accomplish some task, this is all some temporal freedom which we can enjoy for a certain moment. The complete freedom is something which is what is sought after, and that is at a higher philosophical level. At a societal level, we need to enjoy freedom from all kinds of nefarious activities that are taking place, all kind of scandals that are taking place. Why are they happening? In fact, the question is, in Bhagavad Gita, it is asked, Atha kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. The question is, nobody wants to do it. Atha kena prayuktoyam. Under whose impulse this person gets into these kind of activities which are going to be anti-social, which is going to be evil for the society. Papam charati purushaha anichannapi. In fact, nobody wants to do it, anichan, because the conscience pricks him. Be it, in fact, there is an interesting question which is being asked by Adi Shankara. There is a beautiful work called Prashnottara Ratna Malika, which I would request all of you to read. In fact, short Prashnottara Ratna Malika. It is very true to its name. I'll just give you one example now, since I am just reminded of it. And it has a connection with what we are talking about all this time. This question is, what pricks this person? With reference to this, I'll just give you one more example also. What pricks the person till he dies? In fact, the answer is the sin that he has committed, thinking that nobody else knows. I have seen this in our own family, those who have done certain things because of arrogance of the youth, because of the arrogance of the power, because of various other things. When they are in the deathbed, we see that they are just in tears the moment they look at us. This is not going to leave you, and that is what we need to teach. And once we learn this, we have to learn this, then I think we will learn to inculcate all those important values in life. And education is something which is meant for this and nothing else. How does it get into the society? There is another question. I'll just tell you, we were talking about teachers. Who is a teacher is the question in Prashnottara Ratna Malika. Ko Guruhu. The answer is Adhigata Tattvaha Sishyahitaya Udyata Satatam. It's a brilliant answer. The first thing that we were talking about today is how to generate qualified teachers, and there was a question by one of the gentlemen. He was saying that in spite of the fact that we do not have sufficient number of teachers in all the established IITs, why are we trying to create more and more IITs? This was the question. The point is, we have accepted the fact that there are not qualified teachers, and the very definition of a teacher is Adhigata Tattvaha. The one who has really cherished within himself the essence of what he is going to teach, unless he cannot deliver anything, and which will never be digested by the other audience. Adhigatam Tattvam Yena. the one who has cherished what he is going to teach. Okay, the essence of it, this can be explained at a greater level, but due to paucity of time, I just leave it at that. This is one aspect of a teacher, please understand. The other aspect of teacher is Sishya Hitaya Udyata Satatam. Sishya Hitaya Udyata Satatam. In Sanskrit, Satatam means always. The one who engages himself always for the well-being of the student. We don't expect any teacher to engage himself with the student all the time, but what does Shankara mean by saying this? More things are learned by observing than by reading tons of material. The teacher should conduct himself in such a way that he plays the role model for the student to imitate him. In fact, in Vedas we have this declaration, and that speaks of the humility of the teacher. In fact, in the convocation address in Taittiriya Upanishad we have Yan yasmakagam sucharitani tani tvayopasyani no itarani. That is what the teacher says. When the student is supposed to leave the Gurukulam, he says, if you find something which was worth emulating in me, please emulate it. If there is something which you find in me which is not worth doing, kindly don't do it just because your teacher did this. Tani tvaya upasyani no itarani, not the other things. And he also says, Yekecha asmachayagumsaha brahmanaha. In fact, there may be many people who are much more elevated than us. May you look at them and try to emulate those high qualities and values. I mean, this is what the teacher has to teach, and once we convey the importance of the values, then values will be inculcated. So the purpose of education is to enable the student to appreciate values, and once he starts appreciating the values and the kinds of benefits that these values can reap for the society, then all these values will be inculcated. Unfortunately, today we do not have provision to inculcate values. Hardly do we find teachers, many teachers. I would not say not a single teacher is there from whom we can inculcate. I have myself encountered a few teachers who have made an everlasting impact on me, on the kind of teaching that they did, on the kind of values that they stood for. So I'll just give you one example. From Upanishad itself, let me just tell you. We were talking about, see, nowadays, we find teachers who have sort of made education highly commercial. Yajnavalkya, many of you would have heard, the episode occurs in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Yajnavalkya was supposed to educate Janaka the king on a particular aspect, and the discourses keep going on for some time. Every time a particular chapter was concluded by Yajnavalkya, Janaka felt extremely happy on the exposition that was presented by Yajnavalkya, and therefore he would say, Hastrishabham dasyami, sahasram dasyami. I would be very happy to offer you thousands of elephant, whatever it is, was considered as the wealth. Then Yajnavalkya would reply, you can understand the kind of situation. After all, when king offers something, how do we reject? If we reject, it may be considered as immodesty. So what may happen tomorrow may be the anxiety. So in order to handle this, Yajnavalkya says, my father believed in a certain philosophy in which we are not supposed to take anything from the student unless the process is complete. So there is an implied sense in this that I am not willing to take anything from you. He doesn't say that I will not take anything from you. So these are the way. In fact, there is one more example. Let me just tell you. The same episode elsewhere. This Yajnavalkya, once there was a certain declaration which was made by Janaka in a huge assembly of various rishis. He makes this announcement: whomever you consider as the foremost among the Brahmins here who have assembled here, whoever considers himself foremost, may take away this 1,000 cows in which I have put the suvarna, okay? The horns are adorned with suvarna. Then Yajnavalkya tells one of his students, hey Samashrava, may you just drive away all these cows. And that fellow silently takes. Then other people weren't that happy. So they immediately ask, Tvannu khaluno Yajnavalkya brahmishtosi? Oh Yajnavalkya, do you consider foremost among those who have assembled here? The answer that Yajnavalkya gives, Namo vayam brahmishthaya kurmo gokama eva vayagsmaha. He says, I offer my venerations to the foremost among the Brahmins. Brahmishthas. Brahmishta does not Brahmin. In fact, there is a deep meaning out of it. But Brahmanishta. Namo vayam brahmishthaya kurmaha gokama eva vayam. I was interested only in having cows because I have plenty of sishyas, and therefore I asked my sishya to drive away the cows, not considering that I am the Brahmishta foremost among all those who have assembled here, the learned people. But the point is, he was. Normally what happens is, those who have not inculcated those values will immediately jump up and then say, you can ask me any question, I will prove my worth. This was not done by Yajnavalkya. He says, I offer my venerations unto those great Pandits. And of course, all people were asking questions and he just answered them in no time, and all of them felt humbled. So, the other point that I wanted to convey here was, when we speak of the values and education, the foremost among the values that education is supposed to drive in is Vinaya. Vinaya, humility. In fact, there is a beautiful shloka in Hitopadesha we have, Vidya dadati vinayam, vinayadyati patratam, patratvat dhanamapnoti, dhanad dharmam tata sukham. In fact, one can give 1 hour lecture on this shloka, but since it is the most, we are all tired having listened to the entire day's proceedings, I will just explain this in a few minutes and then I will just wind up. Vidya dadati vinayam. There is nothing which can hurt the other person than our immodesty. There is nothing which can please the other person than our humility. Please understand this. In fact, that is why words cannot be. In fact, physical hurt is no hurt compared to the verbal hurt. And hurt that we can show by being indifferent is far more hurting. You might have seen. If the other person says, and you are completely indifferent and ignore him, then he feels much more hurt. So humility is something which is extremely important, and this is what education has to inculcate in the person, and if it does not do, then it is no education at all. Take it from me. And that is why it is said, Vidya dadati vinayam. In fact, if it does not do, it is not education, and I don't know whether we are providing the education today. We are just making people literates who can just churn out certain words, and I don't think we are really providing education. Education should bring in this transformation in this person. This transformation should be brought in. If we cannot do this, then it is no education. Vidya dadati vinayam. And in fact, the shloka tells how this person gets transformed further as he progresses. Vinayadyati patratam. Patratam means respectability. He gains respectability because of this. Patratam. He gains respectability in the society. And once he becomes a respectable person, patratvat dhanam apnoti. Wealth comes on its own. In fact, this is the greatest wealth. The physical wealth is nothing compared to this. And even physical wealth obviously comes dhanat dharmam tata sukham. Please understand, this material wealth is never ever going to lead you to happiness. In fact, it was beautifully conveyed by Professor Kapoor by quoting Plato and Socrates today morning. The only thing that Socrates was worried was, even after death, if I see the people craving for money and not for the values, then my heart will bleed. And that is what precisely, in fact, we have Nachiketa here. This Nachiketa is a very beautiful character in Kathopanishad. In fact, he proclaims it has to be written in golden letters. Everywhere it has to be engraved, I would say. He says, Navittena tarpaniyo manushya. When Yama tried to tell him, I will give you this, I will give you this, I will give you this. In fact, he presents a huge list of things which everyone will crave for. Even one thing, if it is said, then we will immediately do whatever we want. But Nachiketa simply dismissed all of them by saying, Navittena tarpaniyo manushyaha. Nobody is going to be satiated by having wealth. Navittena tarpaniyo manushyaha. And in fact, we will get. If we value the values, then we will get it anyway, and so on and so forth. That is what he said. So, last thing is, patratvat dhanam apnoti, dhanat dharmam. Dhanat dharmam, please understand this. This many of us have lost our vision in this. Today, particularly the younger generation, I feel. When I see the way my grandfather was conducting himself and the values which he stood for, I don't know. Even today, I closely interact people who are far from this, this domain in which we normally move around in the urban areas, and far away from this, rural areas, if you go, they might not have entered a school, but I bow down my head towards them. For the values that they stand for and the kind of education that they have received. I am not joking, I am simply moved. I have interacted with them and I have learned what I have not learned by reading hundreds of books. So everyone is actually, that is what Vivekananda says, every soul is divinely potential. In fact, it is there. It is this kind of education, this alienization from the real nature, which takes away from these values. Dhanat dharmam. If we have wealth, then it is not for my own consumption. Please understand. The more I start consuming, the more I am depriving the other person. The more I am depriving, I will not elaborate on this. Maybe on some other occasion I will elaborate. There are beautiful verses on which we can speak for hours and hours together. Dhanat dharmam. May you engage in activities which will be leading to the well-being of the society. And in this is the happiness, and not in enjoying the luxury. There is no end to it, and that is why the Western world is suffering today. I have interacted closely with many of them. External comforts are comforts at some level which will satiate our desires for a certain while. But the longing that we have for eternal happiness is something which cannot come from this. And that is why they say, Dhana dharmam tata sukham. You may be suffering all through your life, but there can be a certain sense of enjoyment in you that you are living for some principle. If you had sacrificed those principles, that itself can kill you. And many of these people who commit suicide in spite of having all kinds of luxuries is all basically this inner pricking. And that is what is being proclaimed in Mahabharata. Shlokardhyena pravakshyami yaduktam granthakotishu paropakara punyaya papaya parapidanam. So if you have done this papa parapidanam, knowingly particularly, it is not going to leave you. The consciousness that you have cannot forgive you. You may be hiding something, but this inner conscious cannot forgive you. So, with these few words, if education is to be nourishing something in the society, it has to make people have a sense of appreciation for the eternal values, which is what can bring in eternal happiness for every individual in the world. Thank you. Namaskar.
कार्यक्रम के अनुसार लास्ट में वोट ऑफ थैंक्स